The reason why I don't look the entrepreneur industry for inspiration is because they're all boring as hell. They're terrible. Most of them are terribly boring shows that are like, wall-to-wall actionable content. I'm just like, oh, God, nothing could be more boring to me than that.
My serve. Got it. So, you might be wondering why I'm dressed like a freaking 1970 versions of a Will Ferrell character who plays racquetball. Well, yeah. Our guest on the Rise to Mastery podcast today was Solopreneur Michael O'Neal, and Michael O'Neal is an avid racquetball player. We talked about racquetball, only racquetball, nothing else, nothing to do with podcasting, nothing to do with business, nothing to do with anything but racquetball for the first probably 10 minutes of the interview. And it was really one of the most enjoyable podcast interviews I had from an entertainment standpoint. Mike was all about delivering entertainment first. He's kind of anti on the whole, just masterful on my part. He's all about entertaining the audience first, and he talks a lot about kind of the anti of the actionable content that we like to deliver. And he actually does deliver actionable content and good high quality information as well. We'll talk about that in this video, but what he does is he calls it the Trojan horse method of delivering content, right? And that basically just means he sneaks it in there in a unique way. He basically gives you good information throughout, but it doesn't make it seem like he's trying to teach you something. You can listen to the full podcast yourself to kind of see exactly how he phrased it, but it's something along those lines. And it was just a great interview. From that interview alone, Kenny and I changed some of the things that we do with our podcast, and it was just awesome. He gave us some awesome insight on how we can get better from the podcasting standpoint and from marketing standpoint, and just from the way that we interact with the people around us. And it was a really great, most entertaining podcast that we'll probably ever do, and hopefully we can have him on again. So let's actually get into some of the nuts and bolts of it. I actually have notes this time. After the first couple videos that I've done that you hopefully watch on Cameron Kenny Live YouTube channel, I was just kind of rambling, and that's because I didn't do any show notes on hand. I was like, oh, I'll just watch it again, and dumb. So now I actually have some notes that I can kind of go along and talk about some of the high points that we talked about with Mr. O'Neal. So you can check out Michael O'Neal on his website, solopreneur.com. He has his own podcast. It's an awesome podcast, really, like I said, entertaining. It's just like, if you like the podcast that he did with us, then you're going to love his whole show, because it's just nothing but him. One of the first key points that Michael brought up was how to build relationships with key influencers, and some of the different things that he does. He actually has a couple of growth hacks that he talks about, and hacking your way to, get in touch with people and build relationships and network almost with key influencing people. One of the things he talked about that I thought was pretty funny, he said, don't be an ask hole. Yeah, you get it. And by that, he, don't just be asking from things from different people, and, really show that you appreciate them and you really heard what they had to say. And that's kind of why I'm doing this whole get up here, because, we really appreciated Michael's time, and we really appreciated, the kind of change of pace that he offered. We really appreciate how he helped us with our podcast, just some of the things he told us off air about how we can get better. So that's why, I'm kind of going the little extra mile here. And it was just fun. It was fun to just get this racquetball and just smash it. And also because I told him on the podcast that I'm going to play racquetball. And Michael O'Neal, if you're watching this, I'm coming for you. Dressed just like this. I'm coming for you. And I'm going to, probably won't beat you, but I'm going to score on you, just so you know. And just so everybody who's watching knows. Anytime, anywhere, Michael, I'm ready for you. Pretty sure this is going to be the secret weapon, just like your boy who showed you how it's done. It's what I'm going for here. So, but yeah, so we talked to Michael for a while. It was a great podcast. He talked about, how to build relationships. One of the growth hacks that he mentioned that was really cool is he talked about how hustlers recognize hustlers, and really successful, ambitious people, they can recognize really successful, ambitious people, especially when you're hard at work. So one of the things he told you to do was, go to one of the fancy hotels or something where there's lots of fancy smancy business people and the high society types hanging out. He said he used to just take his laptop and he used to just go work, and he used to just get a glass of wine, $8, and just spend a couple hours working while everybody else was smoozing it up. And then inevitably a couple of people will come up to him and say, hey, what are you working on? And he's built some relationships that way. He's built relationships just by his follow-up process. He talked about how he met Pat Flynn and JLD, John Lee Dumas, just by what he was doing and some of the networking strategies and the hacks that he has, if you will. So if you want to learn about all that stuff, obviously it's in the podcast. He also then talked about, there's that saying of you are like the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. And he touched on that a little bit. The point that I really took away from that was that, yes, that is true, that you're the 5 people that you hang out with most. He said, but one of those people is actually yourself. And it has to do with the internal dialogue, the things that you're saying to yourself. And I've never heard that before, but I think it's 100% accurate, because I know that the self-talk that I have with myself, it just holds me at a higher level that I expect to achieve. And I think that everybody can really apply that if you go listen to the podcast and hear all the things he had to say about it. He talked a little bit about zagging. The book Zag, he talked about how he read that book and he really started to apply it to being a podcaster. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but he talked about how when he decided to be a podcaster, there was nothing else. Okay? When he decided to be a podcaster, that's what he was. When he decided to start his podcast, he was a podcaster. He wasn't Michael O'Neal, the guy trying this. He wasn't Michael O'Neal who's just going to see how it goes. Excuse me, not getting cut out. He was the guy who said, I want to do a podcast. I'm going to be a podcaster. And ever since he made that decision, he was a podcaster. And he talked about how he worked some of the principles of Zag and being different and being yourself and finding your voice into his own podcast and everything that he does since then. So check out that book as well. And we got into the same thing that we'll probably get in lots of times with the guests that we bring on, and that is the 4-hour work week kind of ideal. Michael talked about it and talked about how he has in fact lived that lifestyle, and he brought up a good point, because Kenny and I, we really don't, I'm not going to say we don't believe in it, but we just think it's kind of unrealistic and silly. And Michael brought up the interesting point. He said, well, first of all, he said, I have lived that type of lifestyle, and I definitely think it's possible. But he said, the reason that you guys may not think that is because just it's not part of you. It's not built into you to want to do that. And he's completely right. Like, even if I had the ability, which I probably do, and I probably could shape my business in a way to build a lifestyle like that if I wanted to. I only had to work for a couple hours a week, but I would never want to do that. Even if I could, I would never want to do that, because I would just want more, and I would want to build to more. My goals are to make a company that is worth $100 million. I don't think you can do that working 4 hours per week. So he brought up a really good point that I really took to heart, whether we believe it or not. And he really does. And he said the biggest thing to his success is really just focusing on doing the things he loves and spending a lot of time just doing what he loves. Works on old cars, racquetballing, playing guitar, playing in a band. I think not the guitar, but he playing drums in his band. So he really focuses on that. We got really deep into his story as well. Some really crazy things that happened with birth dates that actually linked like 6-degree separation style, Kenny, myself, and Michael, from some of his life experiences and like literally our birth dates. It was crazy. And you can check out it all on the podcast. So go ahead, click the link below. You can get to the access to the actual podcast by clicking the link below this video. Be sure to rate and subscribe this YouTube channel. Be sure to rate and subscribe our podcast. We really, really appreciate it. And if you know Michael O'Neal, tell him that I'm coming for him. If you guys have any tips for me about racquetballing, or if you have any questions about the podcast, let us know in the comments below, and we'll be sure to get back to you. All right, that's going to do it.